Disclaimer to our viewers. What you are about to watch is a true crime story. This story contains content some viewers may find disturbing. Viewers' discretion is strongly advised.
In the Superior Court of the State of California, County of Los Angeles, in Department 101, the people of the State of California versus Monica Sementilli, in case number BA 452-97502. We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Monica Sementilli, guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony as charged in count 1 of the indictment. We further find the murder to be of the first degree. We further find the allegation that the murder of Fabio Sementilli was intentional and carried out by the defendant, Monica Sementilli, for financial gain within the meaning of Penal Code Section 190.2A1 to be true. We further find the allegation that the defendant, Monica Sementilli, intentionally killed the victim by means of lying in wait within the meaning of Penal Code Section 190.2A15 to be true. Dated April 11th, 2025, juror seat number 10, four-person. In the same case, title, and cause, we, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Monica Sementilli, guilty of the crime of conspiracy to commit murder in violation of Penal Code Section 182A1, a felony as charged in count 2 of the indictment. Dated April 11th, 2025, juror number 10, four-person. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, are these your verdicts? So say you one, so say you all.
There is a kind of evil that wears a smile every day. It holds your hand at dinner. It kisses your cheek in front of the kids. It says, "I love you," before bed, and means none of it. That is the most terrifying kind of evil, not the monster in the dark, but the person sleeping right next to you. This is the true story of Fabio Sementilli, a man who spent his whole life making people feel beautiful. He traveled the world. He built a career from nothing. He raised a family in a nice house, in a quiet neighborhood in Los Angeles. He had no idea that the woman he loved, the woman he had been married to for almost 20 years, was planning to have him killed. She had already picked the man who would do it. She had already left the door unlocked. All she had to do was go shopping and wait. Fabio Sementilli was born in Canada, and from a young age, he had a gift. Not a gift that came from a classroom or a book. It was a gift with his hands. He could look at a person and know exactly what their hair needed to do to make their face come alive. He had an eye for it, a feel for it. That kind of talent does not stay hidden for long. Over the years, Fabio built a name for himself that stretched far beyond any one city or country. He became a sought-after celebrity hairstylist, the kind of man whose clients trusted him completely. He eventually rose to become the vice president of education for Wella, the professional salon arm of one of the biggest beauty companies on the planet. He traveled to cities around the world, teaching other stylists, sharing his craft, building his brand. People who knew Fabio described him the same way, over and over again: kind, warm, generous. He lit up a room. He made people feel good about themselves, which, when you think about it, was exactly what he did professionally. It was just who he was. He was 49 years old when he was murdered. He had been married to Monica for nearly 2 decades. They had 2 daughters together. They lived in Woodland Hills, a neighborhood in the western part of Los Angeles, the kind of place with wide streets, big houses, and the sort of quiet that makes you feel like nothing bad could ever happen there. It was the kind of life that looked, from the outside, like everything working out: a successful man, a beautiful family, a home in one of the nicer parts of Los Angeles. But inside that house, things were far from what they seemed. Monica Sementilli had everything a person could want on paper. She had a husband who provided well for the family. She had 2 daughters. She had a comfortable home in a safe neighborhood. She had a life that most people would consider lucky. But Monica had grown restless, and somewhere along the way, she had started looking elsewhere. She met Robert Baker at a gym, an LA Fitness in Woodland Hills, where she played racquetball. Baker, Was her coach there? He was a big man, rough around the edges, with a background that nobody in Monica's life would have been comfortable knowing about. He had a prior conviction for lewd and lascivious conduct with a child from back in 1993. He had worked in the adult film industry. He was a convicted sex offender. None of that seemed to matter to Monica. What mattered was that she had found something with him that she felt was missing from her marriage. The affair started quietly, the way these things often do. Text messages, meetings that nobody was supposed to know about. Within about a year and a half, investigators would later estimate it had become serious, at least in Monica's mind, serious enough to start thinking about what her life would look like without Fabio in it. She had two options, and she knew what they meant financially. A divorce would be messy. Fabio was not a poor man, but dividing assets in a divorce means splitting things up, lawyers, court dates, negotiations. Monica would walk away with something, but not everything. Death was different. If Fabio died, there was a $1.6 million life insurance policy. On top of that, a forensic accountant who later testified at trial calculated that Monica stood to collect more than $2 million in total marital assets if Fabio were gone. She did not have to be a financial expert to run those numbers in her head. At some point, and investigators spent years piecing this together, Monica and Robert Baker stopped just having an affair and started having a different kind of conversation. The kind you do not have unless you are seriously planning something terrible. They used encrypted messaging apps on their phones. They were careful, or at least they thought they were. Monica communicated with Baker more than she communicated with her own husband or children. Half of all her phone communication in the months leading up to the murder, prosecutors later showed, was with Baker. Baker needed help, though. He was not the kind of man to think things through carefully on his own. The judge at Monica's sentencing would later say, bluntly, that Baker did not have the intelligence to plan the brutal, well-thought-out slaughter. That plan came from Monica. Baker brought in a friend, Christopher Austin, a man who was, remarkably, working as a parole and probation officer in Oregon at the time. Austin was someone Baker trusted. The two of them would be the ones to actually carry out the killing. Monica would stay clean. She would not be anywhere near the house when it happened. She would have an alibi. The details of the plan, as they came out during trial testimony, were specific and chilling. Monica forwarded Baker an email with instructions on how to find and access the home's security DVR, the recording device for the security cameras. She left the back door of the house unlocked. She told Baker exactly when Fabio would be alone, and then she left to go shopping. Before she left, prosecutors alleged she sent Baker a text message telling him that Fabio was heading to the store, giving her lover real-time updates on her husband's location. It was like she was guiding him in. Austin would later testify that they had actually tried to kill Fabio the day before the 22nd of January 2017, but Austin could not go through with it at the last moment. The next day, January 23, they tried again. Fabio Sementilli spent the last afternoon of his life at home. It was a Monday. He was sitting outside on the patio of his house in Woodland Hills, the backyard of the home he shared with his wife and daughters. Baker and Austin wore hoodies. They ran to the house. They went through the back door, the one Monica had left unlocked. Austin grabbed Fabio from behind, covering his mouth to stop him from screaming, while Baker stabbed him. Fabio was attacked from behind, which is why he had no defensive wounds on his hands when investigators later examined his body. He never had a chance to fight back. He never saw it coming. The medical examiner counted 7 sharp force wounds to his face, his jawline, his neck, his chest, and his thigh. When it was over, Baker and Austin ran. They took Fabio's Porsche from the property and drove it about 5 miles away, where they abandoned it and disappeared. Monica was still out shopping. She waited. She waited until her youngest daughter, Isabella, arrived home. Isabella was the one who found her father. She found him on the patio, bleeding, and she called 911. She desperately tried to help him. It was too late. Fabio Sementilli was already gone. That image, a daughter finding her father's body, is one of the details that stayed with everyone who followed this case. Isabella was a young woman who had to carry that moment for the rest of her life. When detectives arrived that night, Monica was there. At some point during the chaos of that evening, according to testimony that would later come out, one of Monica's daughters told investigators that her mother had said, "They killed him," a phrase that, at the time, was not given much weight. Everyone assumed Monica was referring to burglars. The neighborhood had been dealing with a series of break-ins. Police initially treated this as a home invasion gone wrong. But there were no other signs of forced entry. Nothing was taken, and Fabio Sementilli was not a random victim. Police detectives are trained to look at who benefits. It is one of the oldest questions in a murder investigation: who gains from this person being dead? In the weeks after Fabio's murder, investigators from the LAPD's Robbery-Homicide Division began doing exactly that. They looked at the crime scene again. They looked at what was missing specifically. The home's security DVR had been removed after the killing. Someone who knew where it was had taken it. Then, about a month after the murder, a break came. Blood evidence collected from the crime scene came back with a DNA match. The DNA belonged to Robert Baker. Baker was in the system because of his 1993 conviction, the kind of case where DNA gets collected and stored. It was a connection he had not counted on. Investigators began building a picture. They looked at phone records. They started watching Monica and Baker. Detectives with the Narcotics and Gang Division helped surveil the two of them. Officers saw Monica kissing Baker outside a bar in public. This was 5 months after her husband had been brutally murdered, and she was openly out with the man who had killed him. In June 2017, 6 months after the murder, police pulled over a black Ford Mustang. Monica was in the passenger seat. Baker was driving. Both were arrested. And then came the moment that sealed things. Police placed both of them in the back of a patrol car together. What they did not tell Monica and Baker was that the car had a recording system. The camera and microphone were running. On that recording, Monica leaned toward Baker and told him, "Deny everything, and don't talk." That is not what an innocent person says. What happened after the arrest was a long, complicated legal road that stretched across nearly 8 years. Monica maintained her innocence from day one. Her attorney stood in front of a jury and said there was zero evidence that Monica had plotted her husband's murder and that she had been fooled by Baker, that she never knew what he was going to do. Robert Baker, for his part, tried to protect her. In July 2023, he pleaded no contest to murder and conspiracy charges and accepted a sentence of life without parole. When he later testified at Monica's trial, he told the court that Monica had nothing to do with the plot. He claimed he acted alone, out of obsession. "I murdered him because I wanted her," he told the jury. "I wanted her to be around me, and with me more like all the time." It was, in a strange way, almost convincing if you did not know everything else. But prosecutors had built a case that did not depend on Baker's word or anyone's sympathy. They had the encrypted communications. They had the email Monica sent Baker, explaining how to find the security DVR. They had the text message she allegedly sent him the day of the murder, telling him Fabio was going to the store. They had the unlocked back door. They had the shopping trip timed to give her an alibi. They had the fact that the security system had been removed after the murder. They had the recording from the patrol car. And they had the testimony of Christopher Austin. Austin, arrested later when investigators tracked him to Washington State, agreed to cooperate. He told the jury exactly what happened, how they had tried the day before and failed, how Monica had sent Baker a text about Fabio going to the store, how they had gone through the unlocked back door, and what they had done to Fabio Sementilli on that patio. A third person, Christopher Austin, was eventually sentenced to 16 years to life in prison as part of a plea deal. After a 10-week trial, on the 11th of April 2025, more than 8 years after Fabio was killed, a Los Angeles jury found Monica Sementilli guilty of first-degree murder with special circumstances and guilty of conspiracy to commit murder. The special circumstances meant she was eligible for the harshest sentence available, life without any possibility of parole. The 23rd of June, 2025. Courtroom 101 of the Clara Shortridge Foltz Criminal Justice Center in downtown Los Angeles. Monica Sementilli's defense team made one last argument. They asked the judge to give her 25 years to life, a lesser sentence, one that would at least leave open the theoretical possibility of release someday. They argued she was not the mastermind. They argued she deserved some mercy. The judge, Ronald S. Cohen, had heard the whole trial. He had listened to all of it, and he was not moved. He called Monica the mastermind in this conspiracy to commit murder. He said Baker did not have the intelligence to plan the brutal, well-thought-out slaughter. The intelligence, the judge was saying, came from her. She was the one who knew the house. She was the one who knew the security system. She was the one who knew when Fabio would be alone. She was the one who left the door open. She was the one who walked away and went shopping while her husband was being stabbed to death on his own patio. Judge Cohen sentenced Monica Sementilli to life in prison without the possibility of parole. She will never leave prison. Los Angeles County District Attorney Nathan Hochman addressed the verdict plainly. Monica Sementilli betrayed the person who loved and trusted her most. Her calculated scheme to profit from her husband's death cost a kind and talented man his life and devastated a family. One of the most heartbreaking threads running through this entire story is the daughters. Fabio and Monica had 2 daughters together. Both daughters, even after everything, after the arrest, after the evidence, after the trial, maintained that their mother was innocent. They believed her, or at least they said they did. It is impossible to know what a person truly thinks when the person accused of the worst thing imaginable is their own mother. Isabella, the youngest, was the one who found her father bleeding on the patio. She was the one who called 911 and tried desperately to save him. She is the one who has had to live with that image ever since. At the sentencing hearing for Christopher Austin, Isabella spoke directly to him. She told him he had the audacity to cry on the stand. She called him a coward, stupid enough to blindly trust someone like Robert Baker. She said she would fight for him to spend the rest of his life in prison. Fabio's family, his sisters, his son from a prior relationship, had their own grief to carry, made sharper by watching the legal process grind forward year after year. His sister Morella addressed Austin at sentencing. "You chose to be present. You chose to take part." Fabio's family had been outspoken throughout the case, furious at any attempt to soften the charges or reduce the sentences. His son Luigi wrote to the court early on, saying the case was truly disturbing. They had waited 8 years for justice. They got it. It is worth stepping back for a moment and looking at what the evidence in this case actually showed, because it is the evidence, not the emotion, that convicted Monica Sementilli. The phone records showed that Monica communicated with Baker more than she communicated with anyone else in her life, more than Fabio, more than her own children. Half of all her calls and messages in the period leading up to the murder went to Baker. The digital evidence showed that she sent Baker an email explaining how to access the home's security system, the same DVR that was removed after the murder. That is not something you share with a friend or a racquetball coach. The indictment alleged that Monica sent Baker a message telling him Fabio would be home alone that afternoon. She then left to go shopping. She waited for Isabella to come home and find her father before she returned. She was not surprised. She did not rush home when she heard. She waited for the thing she had set in motion to be finished. And then there was the patrol car recording. "Deny everything and don't talk." 4 words that, in any context, are the words of someone who knows exactly what happened. Prosecutors also noted that after Fabio's death, Monica called an LAPD detective multiple times asking why the life insurance payment was being delayed. Not once, but several times. The money was the point. The money had always been the point. There are people who look back at a case like this and ask, how? How does a person get to the place where they can plan the death of someone they have shared a life with, someone they have had children with, someone who trusted them completely? The honest answer is that there is no single moment where it all turns. It is a slow drift. A gradual shift in what a person is willing to do, what they are willing to tell themselves, what they are willing to sacrifice for what they want. Fabio Sementilli was not a perfect man, no person is. But by all accounts, he was a genuinely good one. He worked hard. He was loved by the people in his professional life. He was loved by his daughters. He loved his daughters. He had no idea what was coming for him. The afternoon he died, he was just sitting in his backyard, in his own home, in the neighborhood where he lived with his family. It was a Monday in January. He had no reason to be afraid. The door was unlocked because his wife had left it that way. The men who killed him were there because she had told them when to come. She was at the mall. She was buying time. And for 8 long years, she came close to getting away with it. Fabio Sementilli's Porsche was found abandoned 5 miles away from his home on the day he was killed. His life insurance money was never paid out. His murderers are all in prison. His wife will die there. And somewhere in Los Angeles, 2 daughters are trying to figure out how to carry all of it, the grief of losing their father, the shock of what their mother did, the image of finding him on the patio, and the knowledge that both of their parents are gone now. One taken by a knife, one taken by her own choices. This is the story of what greed and betrayal look like when they are finished. They do not look like a villain. They look like a woman at the mall, checking her phone, waiting.